talked on this program before about the voucher system in the state of Arizona, and there are some new developments, primarily dealing with one of the primary backers of the voucher program in Arizona, Cathi Herrod. Cathi Herrod is head of the Center for Arizona Policy, and she and her group have been in the news lately because of SB1062, which was the attempt to discriminate against gay individuals in the state of Arizona by allowing businesses to deny them service. Now, that was vetoed by Governor Brewer, but it exposed Arizonans to sort of the backroom dealing world of Cathi Herrod, who has been called the 31st Senator of Arizona by a number of people. And both the Star and the Republic have now run front page stories about Cathi Herrod, and so some of her workings behind the scenes are now starting to become more public. Now, the rumor at the state capitol is that Republicans are running away from Cathi Herrod as fast as they can because of the national embarrassment that SB 1062 caused Arizona and caused their party in particular. But she is still pushing through pieces of legislation, and one of them is an expansion of the voucher program. Now, Dave has discussed the details of this expansion before, but I want to just give a little bit of an update as to what happened recently. This was in front of one of the committees, and there was, just to recap, this voucher program gives $3,000 to $3,500 per student to families who pull their children from the public school system, and they can use this money for a variety of purposes. One is for private school tuition. They can use it to homeschool. They can set some of it aside for college tuition programs. But once they leave the public school system, they cannot come back in mid-year. So right now, the program only applies to certain classes of children, children with disabilities, children who attend D or F schools, children of military families, children who are in the foster care system. The proposed legislation that Cathi Herrod is backing, along with the Goldwater Institute and ALEC, would vastly increase the number of children who are eligible. Some say up to 880,000 children would be eligible under this proposal, which would allow any child who is receiving free or qualifies for free and reduced lunch to be able to participate in the program. Now, the voucher program ran into some difficulties this week and was not heard in committee. But the rumor is that it will be back, and that Representative Debbie Lesko, who is sponsoring this legislation, is going to try and say that any child attending a Title I school will qualify for this state voucher. And the problem with this, well, there are a number of problems with it. Number one is it's unconstitutional. In the state of Arizona, our Constitution actually bans public funds from going to parochial schools. Our Arizona Supreme Court declared that this was legal because the money technically goes to the parents. It doesn't go to the school, but that is being appealed. But the other problem is that the students that this is supposed to be helping, if they are coming from Title I schools, well, number one, not all children at Title I schools are living in poverty. And number two, a number of our Title I schools are A schools. So what exactly are we rescuing our children from? This is just part and parcel of the pro-privatization movement that we've discussed on this show numerous times. So I'm grateful that finally the public, and I'm sure Dave, you would agree with this, knows the name Cathi Herrod, knows that her far-right, very extreme organization is the brainchild behind these programs, and they really have very little to do with helping children who live in poverty. They have everything to do with shifting public money into private religious organizations where they would much prefer that we educate our children.
You know, I was at a national education conference for the Network for Public Education in Austin, and I was on a panel and I talked about these empowerment scholarship accounts, and people's eyes got wide as saucers and their jaws dropped, and they really scared them because they knew that these could easily come from Arizona to their area. I did not talk about Cathi Herrod because that's just getting too deep in the weeds, but in fact, this is someone who has far too much power and really kind of puts almost literally the fear of God into legislators, and it corrupts our system of government where any one person in any one group is going to have that much power. It's very scary.
Absolutely. Well, she's been able to raise millions nationally. Some of these stories that came out, especially the one that ran in the Republic, was just very well done. And she is able to funnel those funds into threatening legislators with running someone against them in the primary. And she has a very strong, I think, grassroots base of support, and she is able to get people out in the primaries. It's been interesting because she's on the policy committee for gubernatorial candidate Doug Ducey, and Mr. Anti-Public Education, he was asked this week to basically remove her from his policy committee, and he refused to do so. So he still evidently thinks that she's powerful, and he wants to tap into her resources and her base.
Yeah, she's problematic, and so are the vouchers that are coming through. There are all kinds of things that give me a great deal of pain as they work through the legislation, and the best we can do is try to shine light on them. So, if people know more about Cathi Herrod, just like they know more about some of the groups that are working behind the scenes, they're better able to combat the parts of it that they disagree with.
Right, and I think what these programs are, just like so many things, it's the camel's nose under the tent. So the program begins small with just children with disabilities, and suddenly now, a few years later, it's going to affect more than 70% of the children in the public school system. So there you go. Be careful of those camels.